Local multiplayer racing games are my bread and butter, so when I saw a new one come out last week called Total Arcade Racing, colour me intrigued! This one's available for PC and Switch, and its main pull here is that it can allow up to 8 players to play locally, which is quite an impressive feat. If you don't have 8 people, you can fill up the rest with bots, and you can have any combination of the lot, so that's really good. Steam Remote Play does work, although we found that it was a bit janky, and I didn't try this one out with Parsec, but I'm assuming that you can kind of rig it up for that too. Total Arcade Racing is the kind of top-down antithesis of anything that Ultimate Racing 2D has to offer, and I'm going to kind of bounce between these two games throughout the review because I feel like they're two very good offerings but offer very different things in the top-down racing world. Ultimate Racing 2D is all about providing a simcade experience, you battling against the track and the AI, and it being actually something that you can grind away on and really get good at. With Total Arcade Racing, this is all about skin-deep, simple racing. Every race is 4 laps long, you cannot change it. There are no weapons in the game, and you can't add anything in. You may race against AI around circuits that sometimes have unique features, but the AI don't necessarily understand that the unique features are there, and so they will crash into the train, or they won't take the shortcuts. And so, quite often the single-player campaign kind of falls flat very quickly. Where this game does shine the best though is in the local multiplayer offerings. Get some friends on board and it elevates up Total Arcade Racing from being heavily mediocre to something that's actually a little bit more sustainable, I guess, for over a longer gameplay session. I still recommend that you do this in short bursts because even when I was playing with friends, we found that the racing kind of dried up quite quickly, and I'll explain why. The first thing around this is around the types of cars that are available. They've broadly fall into 2 categories, even though, and I don't understand why, they're ranked A to C, but there's no B ranked cars, which confused me a lot. The A ranked cars are very fast, but they take a long time to turn. C cars are slower, but they have more grip. Very standard, but once you unlock all of the Class A cars, you can still whip around all of these tracks so much faster than all of the other types of cars that you will automatically end up with the Formula car no matter what type of race you're in. This is made blatantly apparent with the online leaderboards because all of the top times are all Formula car only, even when you're driving in the 2 off-road tracks that appear at the end of the game. The cars also feel quite binary in their steering, so when you turn initially they kind of turn in and it's all very 90 degrees, kind of, it's standard, and then it will hit a point where actually if you're slightly too fast it will just kind of spin on the spot. So there's a little knack around trying to make sure that you don't trigger that snap, but aside from that the handling is very benign, is what I'd say. The game reminds me heavily of an old arcade classic called Super Sprint, but laid out in a way that reminds me of, do you remember those town mats, those road carpets that you'd roll out and then you'd get your Tonka cars out and then you'd like race them around? I used to have these cars that were in a paint pot and I'd like collect them at boot sales and be like, "Daddy, it's only 5p, buy it for me please, you love me," and like collect them and stick them all in. Then I'd have one of these rollout mats and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, car collision on the motorway." Morbid child that I was. And the aesthetic reminds me of this, but so does the way how the cars handle. It's like bringing that to life. Outside of the racing that takes place, and I really like the way how the game kind of zooms out the map, so that if you've got multiple players all playing at once, it can all be housed on one screen. It's not like split screen multiplayer, if that makes sense. But outside of the racing itself, Total Arcade Racing also provides some mini games. Again, they are very surface level, they are not going to make you rage for hours on end, but they're fun little additions. You've got a survivor mode, which means that you've got to not be in last place, otherwise you get eliminated, but also a survival mode where you're placed into an arena and AI cars will drive in and try to hit you, and if they hit you, your car explodes. Demolition Derby is exactly what you'd think, the same arena but with all of your friends in trying to hit each other and then collect health power-ups to stay alive longer. You've also got car hockey, which reminds me heavily of a fantastic game called Video Ball, which is basically 2D Rocket League. And then there's also a delivery mode, which is where a random crate will appear on the track. You've all got to race towards it, grab the track, and then try and drop it off in the designated coloured zone. These are all fun and fine, but they're all kind of 10-minute jobs maximum. And then I was kind of done with them all. And same with all of my friends as well. And it's because everything has this, not so much cheap veneer, but it feels mobile-y without it being a mobile game, and so it doesn't kind of go out of its way to give you great feedback on anything, and so I always felt a little bit like disengaged from it all. So yeah, that's Total Arcade Racing. It's a tentative recommendation. I think other games do this better. If you have the choice between this and Ultimate Racing 2D, I would plump for Ultimate Racing 2D over this, considering this is actually a slightly higher price point on PC as well. I find that quite interesting. But if you would rather have something that evokes a more of a Super Sprint, Championship Sprint, Super Iron Man, Super Off-Road, that kind of arcade simplistic experience, then perhaps this is the game of choice for you that's come out recently at the moment. And if you've got a big family and you want to play locally, then absolutely Total Arcade Racing should be on your radar, because it's quite rare to have an 8-player local multiplayer experience that just picks up and works without problems. A written review will be over on higherplanegames.com. Until then, I'll see you out on track. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.